This edition of MacVoices is supported by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter to keep you up on all the latest from MacVoices. Watch or listen to MacVoices straight from your email client. Sign up at macvoices.com/newsletter and stay up to date. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, it seems like he's becoming a bit of a permanent fixture around here, and I kind of like that. But this time, we've got him with his official hat on. Mr. Jeff Gamet is here to talk TextExpander. Jeff, welcome. It's great to see you as always.
It's great to see you. And for a second there, I thought you were about to say that I was fermented, which would have been totally acceptable as well.
Well, hey, if you want to talk about being fermented, that's fine. But I thought we were going to talk about TextExpander from Smile. So whatever you decide.
Oh, sure. That's fun too. Let's do that.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. So the full disclosure here, folks, Smile is a sponsor of MacVoices. They're my longest running sponsor. That's not why Jeff's here. Jeff's here because TextExpander is something I think everybody should be using. Everybody can benefit from. It is just that amazingly useful. So, Jeff, with that intro, I know we have a new version of TextExpander, and I wanted to see if you'd give us a quick tour and talk about what it can do.
I am happy to do that, but first, I just thought of this. I'm totally putting you on the spot. Do you have a favorite snippet?
Wow, that's a really interesting question. I use several snippets to produce MacVoices, and so I'd probably have to say one of those simply because they save me so much time because they are HTML snippets. And so it's not just text, it's HTML, which, you know, you can go through and obviously recreate, but it's a real hassle.
I like that. I've used TextExpander with my podcasting workflow for quite a while too. For the small handful of people that don't know what TextExpander is, I suppose we should go into that a little bit.
Probably a good idea.
TextExpander is a tool that runs on Mac, iOS, and also Windows. There's a lot of Mac users who don't realize they can use this on their Windows computer at work too if they want. And what it does is it takes all those things that you have to type repetitively, and then it lets you turn those into what we call snippets. So all you have to do is type a couple letters, whatever abbreviation you make, and then those expand out automatically so you don't have to type them over and over. And that can be words, it can be phrases, phone numbers, email addresses. It can be documents even, paragraphs. You can make these snippets so that they're customizable. So you can have fill in the blanks, pop-up menus, and optional text. You can have formatting. You can have graphics. You can even run scripts inside your snippets, and it works everywhere you can type. How does that sound? Does that sound like the tool you're using?
Yeah, it sounds like actually a lot more of the tool than I'm using, and I probably should brush up on some of these capabilities. But yeah, that's definitely it. And you know, Jeff, my point to everyone regarding TextExpander is you can do all the advanced stuff you just said, but even if you just use it for something as simple as name, address, some words you always misspell, you get great value out of it. And so from there, it only gets better.
I agree. And I've had some people tell me that they feel kind of intimidated because they just don't feel like they get where they can jump in and wrap their head around this. My advice is, if you're new to TextExpander, start off by putting in your phone number and your email address, two things that you have to do all the time or type all the time, and then work up from there. And there's so much you can do. I've been using TextExpander for years, long before I worked for Smile. And I thought I was pretty much a power user because I had some pretty sophisticated snippets in my daily and weekly workflow. And then I start working with Smile, where now it's my job to really dive under the hood. So I understand all of this. Kind of makes sense. I mean, my title is TextExpander Evangelist. I better be able to evangelize about about a lot of stuff. And it turns out, wow, there's even more stuff that I could do than I had realized. So it's, to me, it's one of those awesome tools where you can use it at whatever level is appropriate and comfortable for you.
And I agree with that, and that's why I love it, because I don't feel like you have to be you don't have to be a power user to get a lot of advantage out of it. But if you are a power user, you can get a lot out of it. So it just cuts across every level of Mac user.
I agree. All right, so the big new thing for most users will be the visual editor. And for someone like you who has made snippets, I'm betting at some point along the way you've probably like added a date into a snippet or maybe a fill in the blank.
Oh yeah.
And you know how those, we'll call them macros, those little add-in things that you can put into a snippet, they would have the percent symbol on either end, and then a string of text, a few letters that was the macro code, so that TextExpander knew what it was. And then if there was some parameter that went along with that, like say it was a pop-up menu, then all the pop-up options, you just see all that stuff listed in there. You get to the end of that and you have the little percent symbol so that you know that whole chunk is done, and now you're on to the next part of the snippet. That's what's visual now. So instead of having to look at this whole string of text and try and pick that out of the rest of your snippet, you look for what I'm calling the lozenge. And so you have this nice visual way to pick out where all of those elements are that customize your snippets. And all you have to do is click on them, and then you can edit or modify them, as opposed to what you had to do before, which is look through your snippet, find the place where that macro was, and then click in the text to open up the view where you do that editing. So I think for new users, it's going to be much easier to get into making more customized snippets. For people that have been using TextExpander for a long time, it makes it easier to see what you have going on inside more complex snippets.
Okay, so I think I understand what you just said. Can you show us a little bit of this so we
Sure,
understand
of
it?
course I can. Let me give you a TextExpander window to look at.
Okay,
How's that?
there we go. We have a TextExpander window.
Okay, so this window, or this snippet that you're looking at right here, this is taking advantage of that visual editor aspect really well. So up here at the top, where it says Hi First Name, you can see first name is one of those lozenges. So if I double click on that, it opens up what you're used to seeing previously, which is that editor for that macro. And then down here, here's another one that's actually for a pop-up. So that this one up here, that was just to fill in the blank. This one is a pop-up, meaning it has multiple options that you can choose. So if I double click on that one, you can see that it has the different options in there that I would be able to choose in that pop-up.
Okay.
All right. And people ask me every now and then, hey, what's the blue dot? You can set a default for the choice in your pop-ups. So if you have one option that you use more than the others, set it as a default. Okay. And then down here, you can see this section and this section. They're both what you call optional text sections, meaning you can choose at the time that you expand your snippet which elements to include or not. And then I also have a nested snippet, which is this down here. So I have another snippet that's called jeff.sig. And so I've embedded that in here, and it's obvious that this is another macro element because it has its nice little lozenge. Would it help if I show this snippet in action?
I think so. But before you do, I want to make sure we're clear here. That jeff.sig, that's a snippet all on its own.
Sure. Yes. Let me show you that snippet so you can see what's going to show up in this when we actually expand it. Okay. So on the left, we have our column that has all of our snippets and snippet groups. So if I click on jeff.sig, you can see that it says, cheers, Jeff. It has a little graphic in it, has an email in it, and it turns out I also have another nested snippet. So I've gone all meta on this one. Oh, no, not meta. What was the movie? Where the people fell asleep and were dreaming, and then were dreaming in the dreams. I totally ruined a really great reference. Can you believe it?
You're not talking about... Oh, great. You're not talking about The Matrix, are you?
No, but I bet you most of the listeners are shouting right now the name of the movie. And I feel really stupid by not being able to remember it. If it doesn't come to me by the end of the show, I'll feel really bad. But hey, it's a great opportunity for people to give you feedback and tell you the name of the movie that I just can't remember.
So wait a minute. Wait. Well, before you offer that, so folks, Twitter or Facebook, let's not clog Chuck's email with the name of the movie.
Okay, clog Chuck's Twitter and Facebook account with the name of the movie.
There you go.
The one where everyone falls asleep, they're dreaming, and they have the little top that they look at, and if they see the top, they know they're still dreaming, and the buildings have folded in on themselves. And everyone's going, yes, I know. And the movie is anyhow. Yeah. So I've got my nested snippets. And so if I go and look at the one that says phone, there we go. Now we've got a phone number. So what will happen when I expand the snippet, which is here's the whole snippet. It will give me all of the text as if I'm doing, say, an email, and then it will drop my signature in and include the right email or phone number. Okay. So hold on. Let me switch to a different window. Okay, so let's hop over to Pages, and I'll show you what this looks like when we expand it. So I'll type that abbreviation, which, hold on, what was it? .fill. There we go. Okay, so now here's that fill in the blank. So I'll put your name in there, Chuck.
Okay.
And then we'll pretend like we met at a conference, and you're going to show off your new product, which of course is MacVoices Pro. Because why shouldn't you have a pro version of MacVoices?
Yeah, you just gave me an idea, Jeff.
You're welcome. And I want to tell you all about TextExpander, but we also have PDF Pen and PDF Pen Pro, so I could have been all excited to tell you about those. But since we're talking about TextExpander today, let's use TextExpander from the pop-up. And now here's that optional text area, and you can see all the text is highlighted green. That means it's going to show up automatically in the document. But since we're not talking about PDF Pen right now, I'll uncheck that it turns red. Now I know it isn't going to show up. I added in a thing at the end where I wanted to say I'm really looking forward to checking out whatever your thing is. And it filled in the same text that we have up in the paragraph above, because I made sure that those were the same field. So I only had to type the product name once. And then down here at the bottom, we have everything for the signature. And when I click OK, it's going to fill that in. And there we go. Now we've just made a whole email, and it looks like what you wanted. And it was easy to do because it's just fill in a blank, click a pop-up, and then click a checkbox. and we were done.
So that's a perfect example of TextExpander, and that makes it a lot more clear about what you meant by the lozenges, because it is a lot cleaner and a lot easier to understand than some of the way it used to be.
I think it's a lot less intimidating for a lot of people, and I really like it because the snippets that I've made that are really complex, it would get at times, it could get a little difficult to pick out where I had a macro happening and where it was just text that was going to appear in my snippet when it expanded. And at times it could be hard to figure out. Wait, do I need to click here or here to get in and modify my pop up or whatever it is? And now it's very clear where you need to click, and I think editing the snippets is a lot easier now.
I would agree. So that's probably the tentpole feature for this update. And I'm sure there are also the requisite bug fixes and enhancements. Anything else significant in this update?
Well, the way you can work with the various elements that you're adding into a snippet has changed because we now have the whole visual editor. I'm happy to show you some of those changes as well. But also, I want to point out that if you're using TextExpander for Teams, which is our version that's designed for groups that need to share snippets and manage those snippets, we have new features for monitoring statistics, which is something that a lot of organizations really want because they need to see how their snippets are being used, figure out if they have snippets that maybe aren't relevant that they thought would be, so they created them and it turns out no one uses them. If they need to see if someone is using snippets or not, they can go in and look at individual statistics for people. So that and I say that not like, hey, you can spy on your team, but more in the sense of, if you see that there are different activities that you have going on, and then there's a sudden spike in snippet usage. Now you have a way to be able to quantify, okay, the snippets we're creating actually really are useful in these different scenarios. So it gives you the feedback so that you know when you have the right snippets and that you've created snippet groups that are actually relevant to your team.
Very nice. Very nice. And the team thing, I want to be clear for the folks out there that might be trying to implement this. Just because you have snippets for teams doesn't mean that those individual team members then can't have their own snippets as part of their individual workflow.
That's true. Yes, you can have your own snippets, and they can be just yours. So it's not like every snippet that you create suddenly gets dumped back into this master group that everyone else has access to. So I really like how it's been thought out.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, show us some of the how you work with some of the new features that you were talking about.
Okay, sure. So let's hop back over to my TextExpander window. And here we go. So I think the easiest way to show this is by making a new snippet. So I'm going to click New Snippet, and here we are in the snippet editor. And so if we do this like we're making a form letter or something, and we want to have someone's name in there, I'm going to go and choose fill-ins, single line field, and I'll give this an appropriate name. You don't actually have to name your fields, but here's why you want to. It's because if you want to reuse a field somewhere else in a document without having to retype that thing over again, name your fields so that when you put that next instance of that into a snippet, you give it the same name, and now when you type it in one place, it propagates out to all the others that have the same name. So there you go, bonus tip.
Okay.
All right. There we go, first name. And then if you want to do something like that pop-up that I showed you,
Right.
let's do that. And let's see. Let's go back up to that fill-ins, and we'll choose pop-up menu. And I'm going to call this one greeting. And let's see. I said it was great to meet you. Or how about see you? Oh, how about meet you? I'll even put the space after it so I don't have to type that. See you. And chat. How's that? So now we have three options.
Okay.
And now continue on. Just how about if we say today? There we go. All right. So that's really simple, but we have a couple options in here, and let's give this something. We'll call it Chuck, just so that we remember what we're working with here. And just so you can see what I've done, because my feeling is when you create something like this, it's much easier for people to see it in action. I mean, I can click the preview button, and so you get an idea of what it's going to do or what it's going to look like. But seeing it in action is much easier. By the way, the little eyeball button, that's preview. If you're using a version of TextExpander prior to 6.5, that button is up higher. So let's hop over to that Pages document, and I'll show you that in action. Okay, so let's hop over to that Pages document again, and we'll type our abbreviation. And we'll say, Chuck, it was great to chat today. And look, I put a typo in. Go us. Next. Anyhow, so that's the basic part. And I'm going to take you back to the window, the TextExpander window now, because I think the new visual editor is really awesome when we are working with like optional blocks of text. And we'll fix that typo while we're at it. There we go. Okay, so let's say we want to do an optional block of text. Like I have a couple paragraphs that I might use, but maybe I won't. So we'll go back to fill-ins, and then we choose optional section, and we'll just give this one a description so we know what it is without having to read the whole thing. And so if we were chatting and I was sending you an email, let's see, it'd probably be like, maybe we're talking about podcast stuff. So I did that in all caps. It's just a thing that I do so that it makes it easier for me to see those labels. I'll type OK. And if you've been using optionals before, this is very different, because instead of filling in that optional text and then clicking OK, what you get are the two lozenges. And now I can put my text in that I want. There we go. So we have one optional thing right there. And then let's put another one in because now we have optionals. And let's say this one's about food. Okay, there we go. So now we have two optionals in here. So we can record a show or maybe get lunch.
Okay.
So I'll show you this one in action. And okay, so if we hop back over to our Pages document, here's what happens when we expand that new version. Let's try it again where I'm actually hitting the right keys. Okay, and now we'll put in Chuck. And man, I need to learn how to spell today, don't I? Okay, it was great to chat. Let's see, do you want to talk about podcasting and lunch also? Or just one? Let's say we'll talk about podcasting for now. Click OK, and there we go.
It's just that easy.
Right. And so if I hop back over to our TextExpander window, for the people that have been working with optionals before, this whole thing should just be beautiful to them because it makes it, for me, so much easier to pick out where my optionals are. And from experience, let me show you something here real quick, as long as we're in this window. Let me take that return out. Okay, so if I have my optionals jammed together like this, they become sentences in the same paragraph. If you want them in separate paragraphs, then what you need to do is put returns in instead. And I point that out because it seems obvious, but what I have found is that when people are crafting a snippet, a lot of times they think about it in the same way they would think about crafting code, where those returns may or may not be necessary, and in some cases you need just for readability. In this case, TextExpander is going to remember all of that stuff. And if you put a return in, it will do it. And if you don't, it will just jam everything together, which may or may not be what you want. So just letting people know so that they know what to expect when they start expanding snippets.
Okay, so to go back to the optional for a second. So we have the podcast optional that you put in there. So I want to make sure we're clear on this. If this were a long document, we could put that optional in multiple places well, I said document. What I meant is a really long snippet. We could put that in, but in order to, we can't reuse that. I guess that's what I'm trying to say in another snippet. We have to code it into that other snippet. Is that correct?
Well, we could do that as a nested snippet.
Okay.
And you're okay. Tells me I need to show you how.
No, by all means, show the viewers. But I think the nested snippet was the example of the Jeff.sig, I believe.
Right, but we can do that with optionals as well.
Okay, so you can nest the optionals.
Sure. Let me show you.
Okay.
Because my guess is there's at least a couple people that are saying, wait, what? You're going all Inception on me? Inception! That's the movie, Inception.
Inception, there you go. Take back your Twitters, folks.
Okay, let's say we want both of these to be a separate snippet that we can nest inside this snippet or other snippets. Okay?
Okay.
So this will be fun. I haven't actually tried this before doing it this way. So let's see what happens. I just copied the whole thing, and let's make a new snippet. And let's put that in. Okay, great. It worked just like it was supposed to. Of course it did. It's TextExpander, and we have the coolest engineers ever. So we'll give this its own snippet abbreviation. And
Inception.
yes, I'm going to put a period in front just in case we have to use Inception somewhere else. Okay, so now it's called Inception. Now, if we go back to our Chuck snippet that we just made, let me take that and just get rid of it. And what I'm going to do now is hop over to the keyboard option or menu item here and choose Insert Snippet. And we know we called that one dot Inception, right?
Right.
There it is. So what we just did was we took that that collection of optional sections and put them in here. Now, so that means if I want to use them somewhere else, I can use them somewhere else. And then if I need to change the text in that optional part, then it'll just work everywhere. So we already know what that is. Let's say I actually do want to come in here and add something else. So now I'm in our Inception one. And let's go ahead and add something else to it. And call this one Plan. And say, there we go. So we'll hop back over to our Pages document. We'll use our Chuck snippet again. And let's see, Chuck. And it was great to, we'll say, see you. We're not talking about food today. There we go. So I've got all of that. And if at some point down the road I need to use this same set of optionals somewhere else, I've got them.
And it performed, with the exception of the addition that you made, it performed exactly the way that the first one did, with the optionals just in the snippet.
Mm-hmm.
But when you did the nested snippet, it still performed exactly the same way, and then you modified that and gave it one more. So, yeah, it makes perfect sense. It's just one of those things that people need to think about, because these are obviously very simple snippets you're showing us, but hopefully it'll give some folks ideas about what they can do.
Should we go kind of crazy and make it like really complex?
Sure. I don't know what you have in mind, but here we go.
I can't wait to see what this turns out to be. All right. Let's go back to the TextExpander window. And okay, so we have our Inception snippet here. We may not want to do lunch. It could be some other meal. So I'm going to turn that into a pop-up. So we'll say fill-ins, pop-ups, and eat. All right, so we'll say coffee, lunch, dinner, and how about that? Okay, so what I did was I just put a pop-up inside inside an optional.
Okay.
So let me show you what happens with that. Okay, so if we hop back over to Pages and we run our little snippet, I can say, hi, Chuck. It is great to chat. We'll turn off podcasting this time. And here's that pop-up that I put in for whatever it is we want to do. So let's say coffee. And there we go.
Just that easy. Again.
Right. And you can do stuff with dates too. And working with dates is easier than it was before. So did you ever work with dates in your snippets?
Oh, absolutely. And dates, some of my, you asked earlier, and I hadn't really thought about it, but some of my favorite snippets do have are dates, simply because it puts it right at your fingertips, exactly the way you want it.
I use dates in file names. Like if I'm recording a show, the file name for the show will include the date.
Right.
So instead of having to worry about accidentally screwing up the date and potentially overwriting a previous file, I let TextExpander make my file names for me. And I use dates in there. Have you ever had the opportunity to work with date math?
No, I have not needed to do date math.
Oh, then I'm going to show you date math. So this is special just for you, Chuck. Okay. So this is like your own private tutorial session.
I know. I'm digging this, but is this like Friday night date math or Saturday night date math?
Well, that depends on who buys the drinks.
Okay.
So
sorry.
All right. So here we are. We're back in the TextExpander window, and I'm just going to make a new snippet so that we don't have other stuff in our way. So if we went to do dates, I click on the date thing, and we'll say, let's do something simple for now. We'll say the month. I'm going to put a space, and the day. I'll go comma space and year. Okay, that's a very simple date snippet. So we're going to call this one Chuck Date. And just so you can see what happens with this. Okay, so I'll hop over to Pages. And we'll type our snippet. And there we have the whole date.
This is kind of what I'd expect out of Smile, because stuff has made sense before, but it can be a little bit intimidating, like you said, with all those ampersands and everything, or the percentage marks. And this does make it look a lot more logical and a lot. You kind of know what to expect.
Yes, yeah, it's it's nice, and I think it's very user friendly. So I showed you the date, which you already knew how to use. But date math, let me show you that.
Okay.
All right, so we're back over to TextExpander. So date math, what that means is that you can do math with your dates. So in this case, let's say that what I really need isn't today. What I really need is 4 days from now. So I put the cursor at the beginning of my whole date thing, and I'm going to go to my little calculator option, and I'm going to say add days, and let's say it's 4 days. Okay. So now when my date happens as an expansion, it's going to expand out, but it's going to do the math and add 4 days to it. So let's put this into our original Chuck snippet, and we'll find a way to contrive that in. let's see. So we had Inception in there, and that's where I got to choose everything. Okay, so now what we'll do is say, um, um, let's see. So there we go. We'll say let's chat on, and then we're going to go to the keyboard option and say insert snippet. And what did I call that one? Dot check date. There we go. So now we have a couple different snippets nested inside here. So let's go over to our pages window. And let's see if everything comes out just the way I want. I bet it will. There we go. Okay, so we'll say, Chuck, it was great to chat. I'm up for coffee whenever you are. And we'll say, okay. And see what it did? It did the math for us. So it's 4 days from now. So let's chat on March 22nd.
That is so slick. And I honestly, I did not know it could do that because I really haven't had a need for that. But now I'm thinking, yeah, there are probably about a dozen ways I could use that.
It's wonderfully handy for me. This is one of the tools that I use, like the date math part. I use this when I have to create tracking URLs where the date is part of that. So I can make a tracking URL that's going to be, say, next month. I can make it this month, and I don't have to go in and mess with anything because it's just doing the math for me.
Jeff, you've taught me a lot here. I mean, some things I already knew, some things that I really had, I think I'd forgotten, and then there were some things there that I'd never really used or thought about using. So I think we have to do this a little more often. Come back and show us some of the features of TextExpander.
I'm happy to do that. It's so TextExpander is one of those tools that I haven't been able to live without for a long time. For a really long time. Like I have my trifecta of apps that have to go on my new Mac whenever I get a new Mac. Once those 3 apps are on, then I can start figuring out what it is that I want to install. But my computer to me is hobbled and useless until I install TextExpander, 1Password, and Dropbox.
Yep, right there with you. Right there with you. We've had those kind of debates, and everybody has their essential apps. But I would put those on, and for me, I might add default folder because I use that incessantly.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, there are those apps, but they just seem like the perfect gateway to things, no question. But TextExpander, yeah, you sit down and you try to type something on a machine that doesn't have TextExpander, and it just turns out gibberish because you're using all the expansions that you are used to, and they aren't happening. So
yes. Yep.
Yeah.
And yes.
So if you're a TextExpander subscriber, then these things are available to you right now. And if you're not, then what's the procedure, Jeff?
Then the procedure is head on over to textexpander.com and create an account. You can use TextExpander for free for 30 days. And then after that, for what we call the Life Hacker plan, which is individual users, it's $40 a year. And unless you're already a TextExpander user, in which case it's $20 a year.
And it's I can't stress enough that I use TextExpander multiple times every hour, not every day, not every week, hour. That's how much it ingrains itself in you. So it's a subscription, folks, and that's fine because this is why it's a subscription. Cool stuff like this, extra development, you're not having to wait until it comes out.
Yeah, if you're not already using TextExpander, that breaks it down to about $333 a month, which is less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks
On a monthly basis.
Yeah. So if you need to skip one cup of coffee at Starbucks a month and have a mug of office coffee instead, that seems like a small price to pay.
You will get so much more done. Trust me.
You will. And TextExpander tastes so much better than office coffee.
Okay. Hadn't thought about it trying to sell it that way, but that's a good point, Jeff. Where should folks reach out to you if they have TextExpander questions or Inception questions?
How about, well, first, you can head over to TextExpander.com and find out all kinds of stuff there. But if you want to find me personally, that would be Gamet on Twitter and Instagram. So I'm around and I am easy to find.
Perfect. Jeff, it's always fun. Thanks for the time and thanks for the education. I'm off to create a few new snippets of my own.
Awesome. And thanks for having me on, because it's always so much fun to hang out with you.
Yeah, we'll do it again soon.
Awesome.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it. This was a little more than just the typical software update, thanks to Jeff and the demos. And so I hope you will be inspired to either use TextExpander more or to check TextExpander out for the first time. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our MacVoices Facebook group and get more out of your Apple Tech with MacVoices magazine, free on Flipboard. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us at patreon.com/MacVoices and join these folks who help keep MacVoices coming to you. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.